Creighton, you could introduce our first player.
Yeah, sure, no, I'll do that. Spawning in the top left-hand side of Romanticide L.E. Grant, here from Team Exxon and the country of España, we have got SouLeer.
And his opponent, it feels silly to even have to introduce him at this point. There's no way I can do him justice. He is the Red Zerg player from Finland, the world champion of 2018. Playing for Ents, it's Serral.
Now, I'm a little disappointed, Grant, I'll be honest. You didn't say Finland in Finnish. I don't know what that is, but
Swami.
I mean, is it really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. A lot of things in Crusader Kings 3 are making a lot more sense now the more I hear about it. That makes a lot more sense. Yes, you're right. So this amateur golf pro on the red side, Serral, versus SouLeer, who is this young up-and-coming... Oh, I hear the monster energy happening, Grant. That was as good as branded right there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this amateur golf pro playing up against a young up-and-comer. Obviously, Serral, a pretty heavy favorite in this matchup. But, Grant, let's be honest. The panache, the excitement, the youthful vitality and vigor and vim and zazz that SouLeer brings to this matchup cannot be underrated.
No. And also ZVZ a matchup where build order hard counters are possible. We're not seeing anything to indicate that is going to be the case here in map 1. Both players have opened very standard, but we did see it specifically quite a lot in the Latin American region on our first day of broadcasting, where one player will try to go very heavy into Ling Bane, the other one goes Roaches, and the Roach player rolls over because the Ling Bane player didn't identify what was coming their way. There's also Nidus play. There's a lot of trickery in ZVZ, and realistically, that is what SouLeer will have to rely on.
Yeah,
now,
he's gonna have to channel his inner Robbie Rotten today if he really wants to make this work.
It's Dennis the Menace. He's gonna be a rascal.
Wow, that's a reference from like the 1950s. I was not expecting you to make. Jeez, Grant.
Now
we just lost all of our viewing audience who's ever like used the internet. They were like, "What? Dennis the Menace? What even is that?"
I read the Beano all the time growing
up. We're losing everyone now. I feel like I should be just talk about playing bingo and going down and eating some prunes and stuff.
I don't like prunes.
Okay, well, you're officially not as old as I am. Anyway,
you are
StarCraft.
StarCraft. So Serral is going to get the Baneling Nest down at about the 2 minutes 50. It's all pretty standard so far from Serral. Baneling Nest also going down from SouLeer. Serral's going to have his Overlord chased away. Of course, this hatchery under no real risk here. The Queen, she may be slow, but she packs a punch and will be able to push Serral away. So far, it looks like we are going to be moving up to a pretty standard free-based scenario with Ling Bane being the name of the game. You can see, I mean, right now it is an exact mirror in terms of where lava is being spent. SouLeer getting an Overlord a little bit earlier than Serral, but apart from that, only 2 Lings differential. Speed finishing up at the exact same time for both of these players, and right now it is the calm before the storm. The air raid sirens are going off for both of these players. They know it's going to get pretty rough pretty soon, and it's just a case of managing as best you can until it all goes to pot.
Yeah, you know, it's always funny how long these CVCs can maintain their sort of thin veneer of actual, like build order nonsense. I feel like PvP is one of those matchups where it takes 10, maybe sometimes 15 minutes, and the player's like, you know what? No, I'm just going to sit back. I mean, watch a Showtime game, and he's just like, I'm going to sit back, and I'm going to build order the hell out of this game, and I'm going to get everything exactly correct to the millisecond 15 minutes in. And it seems like ZVZs don't usually quite last as long with the builder staying quick. You got to respond just a little bit more quickly to what your opponent is doing. A little bit of pressure here from both sides, actually. Serral being so aggressive on the third of SouLeer that he's not able to defend his own third. Now SouLeer's going into the natural. Grant, is this the right call, or should he have stayed on the third base?
Serral forced a mineral walk here. Serral losing a few workers. We've seen 4 go down already. Make that 5. Serral has been forced to come the whole way home. The Queen surviving is a bit frustrating here from SouLeer, but he does now have that worker lead. As long as he makes a load of units at home to defend any counter pressure, he didn't commit any Banelings. He has another run by now coming down to the third base, and things for SouLeer starting to maybe pick up a bit of steam here.
You know, it's really interesting, Grant. We see 7 drones in production right now. Serral, of course, has lost a total of 7 this game, so he's just replacing his drones. But this actually does give SouLeer a moderate advantage in the early game, straight up ahead. Now, the Roach Warren for Serral down a little bit earlier. And most importantly, I'd like to point out, Serral going for that +1 Carapace upgrade instead of +1 missiles, which is a bit more versatile. Obviously, +1 Carapace helps Lings, Banes, and Roaches, whereas SouLeer's +1 missile attack is a slightly more standard build and is just going to benefit him for the for the roaches. Looks like Speed Roach is going to be on the way for SouLeer, though, as his Lair Tech comes down. But Serral, 10 roaches on the way, Grant.
Yeah, so Serral's first bound of roaches already on the way. There is 10, 11 larvae here for SouLeer, so we'd expect him to follow up with a good amount. He's got a good, healthy bank. There we go. He's now going to match that. And upgrades, as we said, by the time Serral got across the map with all of these roaches, there shouldn't be a huge window for Serral to get the closure of this game. But, I mean, it's Serral. He can make things happen that none of us believe possible. And he is now starting to move out. He's going to set up a 1-2 punch with Lings running in. Ling Banes running into the natural by the looks of it here, and roaches that will probably swing around to hit the third. It does look like actually he's going to bring the army together for now. Serral is making nothing but units right now. He is down 14 drones. If this attack does not stick, then Serral is going to be in a monumentally disastrous position, Creighton. He has to find damage.
This is really surprising to see Serral in such a position of weakness here, and he's going to go ahead and go for it. His +1 Carapace is finished up, but there's no +1 yet from SouLeer. He's still waiting, about 20 seconds away from getting that +1 missile attack for his roaches. The roach count's fairly even with these two players, 16 for 21, so SouLeer slightly ahead, but of course those 21 Lings from Serral going to give him a distinct advantage as far as surrounds and positioning goes. SouLeer on the edge of the knife right now, and as you said, Serral is going to swing some of these Lings over to try and hit the third base, but SouLeer spots him with his own Lings, which are heading over. Here's the big attack.
Yeah, Serral is having to be a little bit hesitant. He did manage to get some banelings up the ramp or round the side and kill 4 workers. And that's a good start. There's a lot of very, very, very weak drones here in that natural. And Serral will be very aware of that. Of course, they regen a little bit over time, but still, SouLeer's in a good spot. His roach speed is almost 3/4 of the way done. Guess what? Serral started mid-sentence for me there. So there is a huge window here for SouLeer to be able to get the better engagements, to be able to micro more effectively, as long as he doesn't make any mistakes here. I mean, if I didn't know these players' names and you go, who do you think was going to win this game right now? I would be saying blue.
No question. I hate that when you're casting something, you're like, he doesn't even have roach speed, and then by the time the words come out of your mouth, they start the roach speed upgrade, and you're like, caster curse, come on. But yeah, absolutely. If I didn't know who these players were, my guess would be the blue player would be the strongly favored player. So we'll see if he can pull things out here. His +2 is on the way now. Serral, again, does have those upgrades slightly earlier. So +1 Carapace and +1 missile attacks are going to help him out quite a bit, as SouLeer's attack is just going to come at +1 missile attacks. I don't think SouLeer can afford to wait the 70 seconds before +2 finishes. He's going to set up here in a more aggressive position. Grant, he's putting himself at a bit of a risk being across the map like this. Do you think it's going to pay off for him?
Yeah, he needs to be aware. I mean, this is Serral. He's always going to have a small group of units, a faction of units out on the map looking to counterattack. It's just what he's best at. And you can see there are some Lings sharking around. Serral is in a little bit of panic mode here because he has been forced to make 3 spines, but SouLeer's going to go. Some of the bios connecting very, very well to start things off here. Queen's going to fall down. In terms of army supply, SouLeer is way ahead, but his upgrades are not as good. Is Serral going to be able to hold this back, Creighton?
Yeah, he absolutely is. That was a pretty rough engagement for SouLeer, honestly. Trying to get up on top of Serral's units, and I think misjudging the fact that Serral was going to be on +1/+1. And the fact that Serral had roach speed allowed him to get a really nice concave on those units as well. So SouLeer, unfortunately, fighting into a bad position. He's still ahead, and he still did kill off 5 Lings there with some Baneling run-bys into the third base that we weren't able to catch during all the action. So he will reset that drone count, and the economies are fairly similar, but being behind on upgrades cannot be understated right now. A little surprised, honestly, that SouLeer has not dropped down a second Evo chamber to try and catch up with that. He has to know now, after clicking on Serral's roaches, that Serral has a distinct upgrade advantage against him.
Now, what I'm interested in at this stage of the game is which player will look to advance their tech sooner. In ZVZ, it often comes down to who bites the bullet and goes for the transition towards a Spire first. And I imagine eventually one of these players will make a Spire. But for now, I think SouLeer would be the one. There we go. We've just seen Serral place it down. Wow. As I'm speaking again. So it is going to be Serral. I thought
Great game knowledge there,
Grant. I know. I thought SouLeer may be the one to do it first, knowing that he has more control of the map. He is the one right now being the aggressor. He is still up 14 army supply, and now even in upgrades. There is a window here for SouLeer. I'm surprised he's not taking that fight. I suppose he's a couple of roaches down there. Here we go. Reinforcements coming in. Going to catch a lot of Serral's roaches here.
Ooh, yeah.
Nice
really rough there.
control.
Yeah, it's Serral looking like a Wood League of Legends player there, trying to dive a little bit too deep under that tower and losing a ton of roaches on the south side. But the problem is, Grant, that SouLeer's almost never going to be able to engage up this ramp. Romanticide is a really interesting map in that there are only 2 attack paths. There are only 2 attack paths into the third base. Scratch that, Grant. Let's talk about these attacks going down. We'll talk about the map later.
Yeah, SouLeer right now is going to not heed Kraton's advice and go for it, but he is fighting into 2 Spine Crawlers. Upgrades are even +2 to 1-1 here, and SouLeer seems to be taking a pretty good fight. The supply is now 20 in his favor, but reinforcements from Serral coming in. There's a lot of Serral's forces down on the south flank. If SouLeer can just bring his army together and clean up some of these Ravagers, it looks like maybe Kraton, just maybe SouLeer's starting to believe.
Wow, this is incredible. The Spire down, of course, for Serral, but no Mutalisks out. 3 Mutalisks pop out just as soon as I say it, but I don't think that's going to be enough here. The army supply differential right now for SouLeer is too big, and even though Serral is getting a nice cleanup at the end of this fight, and his reinforcements are cleaning, I think that if SouLeer retreats for just 1 moment, hangs on a little bit more, cranks out 10 more roaches, and tries to attack in, he's going to have a chance of pushing in. But Grant, I cannot stress enough, that fight looked good for SouLeer, but attacking up this ramp is so dangerous. Just the slight advantages you have from high ground vision, from positioning, make it so difficult to engage here as the attacker. And the defender has a distinct advantage positionally, and of course with those units popping out for the usual defender's advantage. But SouLeer still ahead on army supply, Grant.
Yeah, we're seeing world champion level defensive micro here from Serral. The Ravagers just haven't been able to go down for a long time, but finally they fall. SouLeer up 30 supply. A lot of supply is still in reinforcements, a lot of it moving across the map here from SouLeer, but he's not losing that much. The Mutas are doing their best they can to tickle this down, but I said it can be a big risk for the player that transitions to make that transition, because his Mutas, sure, it's constant, untouched DPS. There's nothing SouLeer can do, but it's a very small amount. Serral's losing workers once again, but I do think he's just about going to hold on, and the Mutalist count, if it can grow high enough. I mean, I don't know how Serral has done this. I do not get it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting engagement, as we said. Distinct disadvantage fighting up the natural ramp, which does a couple different things. 1, allows the defender to get a superior concave. 2, allows the defender's reinforcements to come from both the natural and the third base, which when you're dealing with small numbers of roaches is actually really useful, because then you're able to flank on both sides. And then third, of course, you have that defender's advantage. Romanticide is a very difficult map to engage there, and not until just a few moments ago did Serral mine out these minerals between his third and what's going to become his 4th base very soon. Now, SouLeer already has a 4th base up. He's slightly ahead there, but he's invested so heavily in roaches, and Grant, he has absolutely no answer for the Mutalisks. None at all. No Hydras, no counter mutas of his own, and the queen count at 3.
Yeah, these mutas are going to be game-changing here for Serral, and I am in shock and awe right now. I did not expect Serral to hold that, and I don't mean that as an insult to Serral. He had a huge disadvantage for a good 3 minutes of those fights, but he just microed perfectly, and it ended up being incredible. And now these mutas, I mean, SouLeer's doing the best he can. He's getting some spores, but Serral is really transitioning now. He's put his foot on the gas pedal. He's getting +1 air weapons. He has the muta count is soon going to grow to 20, and without Hydras or Infestors or 85 spore crawlers, SouLeer is now the player in trouble.
Man, Grant, that was so close, And I know, Grant, close only counts, as my grandfather used to say, in horseshoes, hand grenades, and women.
Yep.
But honestly, SouLeer so close there to actually unseating Serral with a really, really nice timing, very crisp attacks, and fighting as best he could up that ramp. Unfortunately, not quite enough, and now he's got to try and buy himself enough time to get some response. Grant, why is SouLeer still making roaches? What's he thinking? I
mean, the problem right now for SouLeer is if he techs, Serral's going to kill him. He has a lot of gas. I'm very surprised that he's never gone for a roach, for a Spire of his own, but he would be playing from behind. We do have a big attack coming in once again from SouLeer, but the roach number is, the muta number even, is just extreme. And now at this point, they do trade well. They do enough damage. I said do.
And did.
The roaches just get absolutely destructinated here. Serral now with a 30 supply lead, and it is, unfortunately for SouLeer, it's the closest I've ever seen anyone get. But Serral takes the win.
Oh, man, Grant, that just shows you the power of not just a defensive position from Serral, but also of those Mutalisks over time. We saw those first fights happening where SouLeer had a distinct roach number advantage, right? And despite having fewer upgrades and a bad position, he was still able to take really scary fights against SouLeer and throwing him back. He was not... I think it's fair to say he was ahead at certain points, but StarCraft is not like a light switch where you can say ahead, behind, behind. There's so many factors going down to it. It just shows the power of that transition. The Spire, it's expensive when you're in the moment. You're like, oh man, this could be like 2.5 roaches, man. But when you plop the Spire down and just investing into that, taking that little bit of a risk really pays off in the long term. 3 Mutals is not scary. 27 Mutals at the end of the game, as you said, just exploding roaches, and there's no hope if you don't have a response to it. I think SouLeer just kept trying to run his ground game and overrun Serral, just kind of out-zerg Serral, but the Mutalisks were just too strong.
Yeah, and I'd love to see Artosis or Pig or, one of those really analytical casters break down Serral's defense there and watch it in slow motion, because I feel like the actual fights at times, I'd need to watch again, because Serral did have way less. His upgrades for a long time were even, but he just took the right fights. He split units off. The fights weren't just wall of roaches versus wall of roaches. There was some going off to the east, some going off to the west, some a little bit further back. There were queens and spines, the exact, like maybe one less spine, different game. We don't know. I'd really love to see that game again, because that was masterful. That was art, Creighton. That was art.
Yeah, the really good news is, of course, that all these replay packs are generally released after DreamHack is over. So if you guys are a ZVZ or you're a Zerg player and you want to improve your game just a little bit, I mean, obviously watching Serral matches is a great way to do it. But going back and watching things just like if the who was selecting which roaches, how they were target firing, all that kind of stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy good. But we're in already to game number 2, Grant. Why don't you introduce our first player?
Yeah, our first player playing for Team Exxon got very, very close in game 1. Representing Spain, the Red Zerg player, it's SouLeer. Do you know what? He's earned one, Creighton.
He definitely has. Well-earned air horns there for our Spanish boy SouLeer. And his opponent, the man with no name, whose name is Serral. I can't remember what TV show or movie that's from, but at one point somebody got introduced as he's the man with no name, and his name, it might have been The Office, and his name is Serral. I don't know, whatever. Really cool stuff. Let's look at these players, though. Immediately, Grant, hatcheries down on both sides, likely going to be into gas pools from here. If your SouLeer right now, Grant, is going hatch gas pool, the correct choice in game number 2.
Yeah, I do think Serral has shown that although he has died to some early all-ins from Raynor and Rogue and Dark, and I mean this with the utmost respect, SouLeer isn't that player, and maybe going for a win in the mid game with roaches seems to be, I mean, it nearly worked, it really did, and maybe he can make it happen again, and maybe this time he can get it over the line, but I also think it's just fun to play against Serral. Like, it's probably not that often. Serral's 7.4, 7.5k on the ladder, and SouLeer may get him every now and then, but you don't get a best of 3 versus Serral too often. So this is cool. I do want to take a quick second, Creighton, sorry to interrupt you, to say, guys, there's a lot of you watching right now. I know a lot of you don't know that the B stream has been going on all event. It's going to be going on for the rest of the event. Please follow this channel or go and retweet either me, Grant SC2, or Creighton at Creighton Olsen. You can see it in between games. Let everyone know that the B stream's going on, that we've got the best games. The B is for best, bald, and British, because that's what the stream has. So please let everyone know. We love having you all here, and thank you very much for joining us so early. That game 1 definitely woke me up.
Oh, yeah. If I wasn't awake already, Grant, I am definitely there now. And this is coming from a guy who woke up at 3:30 a.m. this morning to cast another event before this one. Luckily, I've squeezed in a nap. I've squeezed in some coffee, and I'll definitely be getting some more of that. And I've also secret caster weapon, Grant. I had 2... for you, yes, I think that's correct. Since I don't do energy drinks, my secret caster weapon this morning has been, I went to the store before the match and bought a family-sized box of honeycomb cereal. So I am probably just sugared out of my mind, like a 7-year-old on Saturday morning, which is mostly true, honestly, because I have about the brain power of a 7-year-old, and it is a Saturday morning. So I am super jazzed for this matchup. Baneling nests on both sides. This time, Serral ahead again. No distinct advantage on either side, I don't think yet, though, Grant.
Yeah, both gone for Baneling Nest. Serral's a little bit quicker here, making sure he doesn't die to anything. Serral pumping out a whole bunch of lings, as is SouLeer. You can see worker count's pretty even here. tech choices even. There's no real difference here. Serral's going to make a couple of banelings. I'm not sure where they're being made. Probably at home, I would imagine. Serral gets a bit of a scout. May even get a drone here. You don't want that to be happening. SouLeer, no, you can save it. Wasn't even close, baby.
Hashtag, what is what's the Rocket League thing? Calculated.
I don't know.
Or, oh shit. I'm going to get yelled at by Rocket League enthusiasts in the chat. Anyway. All right, third base finishing up here, but already Serral with a nice timing here. A big Banelings, a couple Banelings to zone out here. This is a tough position for SouLeer right now. His Banelings are a little bit late, and his third base is down, Grant. This is rough. This is rough.
Yeah, and this is Serral just exercising his will on lesser humans, because he just took the Ling. There was almost identical amounts. Sure, he had some Banelings a little bit quicker, but he just microed a little bit better in those fights. We do have SouLeer with a bunch of Lings trying to see if he can find some counter damage here, but it doesn't look too likely as Serral has a good Baneling count. SouLeer is going to be forced to retake that, and this game not going quite as well to start off here for the Spaniard, but it's not over yet.
Man, Grant, are you familiar with there's a quote in the first original Star Wars movie where Princess Leia says, "The more you tighten your grip, General Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers."
Yes.
And I feel like that applies to StarCraft sometimes, where the more a player tries to control the map, the more likely they expose themselves to things like run-bys. And I gotta say, I feel like Serral is the only Sith Lord in the world who can tighten his grip and not lose control of any more star systems. He always seems to know how to balance his risk between attacking and still staying defensive here. This looks so good for Serral already. The third base being rebuilt here, but these Banelings not getting very many good shots. That last one finally gets a few Ling kills, but if we look at the resources lost tab, we'll see that Serral, a significant number of resources ahead here. Even with these Banelings from SouLeer in place, look at that. Waste them on a Queen. This is such a good defense. Such a good defense.
Yeah, Serral, I mean, if the third hadn't have gone down here for SouLeer, it would be looking very differently, because SouLeer's work count is good. He did do okay down at the south side. You know, he probably ended up trading relatively even when all was said and done down there, but he lost that base. And that means, you know, even though, Serral's barely mining for a bit, he's got lava, he's got the inject rolling, and within the next sort of minute, once all of that catches up, Serral is going to rocket ahead in terms of supply.
Yeah. It's that sort of knee of the curve that we talk about sometimes. God, this third base just under more duress. This is so bad. Even SouLeer forced to bring the Queen over here to try and respond to it, but that means the Queen is off creep. Oh, Grant, this is just so rough for SouLeer. Already this third base pretty low on health, and his own third base on the other side of the map, Serral is able to save this third base, drive away the Lings, and as you said, if you were just looking at drone counts a moment ago, you'd think things were even. But now that Serral's way ahead in the drone count, we should see him in the knee of the curve in his supply. As soon as this Lair Tech finishes up, we are going to see a lot of roaches popping out for Serral.
Yeah, SouLeer has been able to get a couple of nice scouts, and he kills a couple of workers here and there, which is nice. Can't get me wrong, he is making good moves, and if he was playing against anyone other than Serral right now, I'd be bigging him up a lot, but this is still a very, very dangerous road for him. His lair timing is much later, meaning that roach speed will be later. In terms of upgrades, I mean, Serral is a full upgrade ahead plus a little, and the roach count as well. Right now, looking at the units, we can see Serral only has 8, but he has enough bases and enough queens to really pump his lava up soon, and we should be seeing more and more coming out within the next couple of minutes. Serral's in a great position right now. Economically, if we take a look at the income here, we can see that he's mining just a few hundred minerals more per minute, but he's got a lot more gas income, meaning that he probably, if he feels so inclined, can throw down that Spire now relatively risk-free, or move into Hydras and Lurkers. Whatever Serral wants to do right now, it's kind of his choice. As long as he doesn't double down and overcommit to anything silly, which, I mean, it's Serral, he's just in a great spot.
Yeah, you know, there's no real reason right now for Serral to engage into a Spire unless he really wants to set more of the timbre for the game, more of the tone for the game. And I don't really know why he would do a Spire right now. It's like one of those options he could take, but honestly, if you're going to play a ground game, you know you have superior upgrades, you know you have superior economy. Why would you put yourself in a position to invite more risk, put yourself at a trough of power, so a weak point in your power spikes, and hope that your transition catches your opponent by surprise? Whereas, you know, if there's a Hydralisk Den or something down for Serral, or for SouLeer rather, it would be just almost immediately hard countered. So I think Spire is definitely an option for Serral, but right now there's no indication that he'll move into anything like that right away.
No.
I mean, we'll see if I expect, of course, as soon as I say it, for Serral to be like, actually, there's some 10 million IQ wrinkle brain reason to do it that you've never even considered, Creighton. But it looks like so far we're pretty safe here. But as you said, Serral now 2 full upgrades ahead. Gonna be done. There it is. 1 full upgrade ahead. And SouLeer, oh man, he's got an uphill battle as he attacks with these roaches.
Yeah, I can't see any way this works. Not only is SouLeer down in upgrades, he's actually down in army, which is not a position you want to be in. Serral just has a huge force. Attacking up a ramp is never ideal, but Serral just walks straight past the bios, pretending they're not even there. And now Serral's bios managing to connect a little bit here, but he just has overwhelming numbers. Creighton, 60 supply difference. And Serral charges forward. Right now he could dance his roaches, but he's not going to because he's a nice guy. And unfortunately for SouLeer, he did his best. Game 1 was an absolute incredible showing, and he should be very, very proud of himself if you watch this back. SouLeer, we were on the edge of our seats. But Serral is monumentally ahead in this game.
Yeah, monumentally ahead, for sure. I mean, just army supply alone, and without even discounting the upgrades, you know, normally a player might be a bit more cautious in this position. Grant, they may like move into wait for the +2 to finish, not engage until they have a superior position. But honestly, Serral can just sort of let the chips fly, or let the dice roll and let the chips fall where they may. He's got so many roaches here, and this game just all but over. All but over.
GG! Serral with a 2.